Hello, today we are gonna talk about world economics. Well, there are different aspects, different perspectives to understand the world. Philosophically, historically, geographically, scientifically, different aspects and different perspectives and different fields there are to understand the world. But if you want to understand the world materialistically and realistically, there is a very important perspective to understand the world, and that is the economic perspective. That how the whole world system is economically, by wealth and by values. So we will discuss in this video all about it. So let's go right away to this topic. So, have you ever thought what is the value, what is the price of everything in the world? World mean not the universe but here on earth. All the value, all the prices of everything here on earth in human system is, according to Wikipedia, $418 trillion. Approximately $418 trillion. In other words, $418,000 billion. And believe me, this is a huge amount to imagine, to visualize, to understand. So that is the net worth of the whole world, $418 trillion. And according to the Google, the net GDP of world, annual GDP of the world, nominal is approximately $94 trillion. And if you consider GDP as purchasing power parity, then the net GDP of the world is approximately $142 trillion. That is the figure of 2021. I mean, that is the latest figure I'm talking about. I'm telling to you. So you must know that what is the difference between nominal GDP and purchasing power parity GDP. Nominal GDP is actually based on the international exchange rate of the currency as compared to US dollar. I mean, this is useful in international economic market and in exchange market. Now, purchasing power parity is a more realistic GDP term. As the name demonstrates, purchasing power parity, it is the GDP based on the comparative prices of the goods as well as living costs in two countries. For example, let me explain it by an example. For example, the exchange rate of US dollar with Indian rupee is $1 equals 63 Indian rupees. So that is an exchange rate, but the price of one coffee cup in US is of $1, while the same coffee cup in India is of 30 Indian rupees. What does it mean? That you can purchase just one coffee of the same quality from US by $1, and you can purchase 2 cup of coffees in India of the same quality by that $1. So what does it mean is that every country has different life standards and different living costs. So purchasing power parity GDP is also considers, purchasing power parity GDP also considers the relative living cost in any two countries. So that is a more realistic GDP term. Anyway, let's go further. There are approximately 195 different countries in the world, but they are not equal. There is a huge diversity and variety. Some are big by area, some are small, some are more influential historically, some are less. In the same way, economically, there is a huge inequality in the countries of world. Some are giant economies in the world like US or China. You can see in this graph I'm showing you here. That is the list of top 10 countries by nominal GDP. So here you can easily see that United States of America is on top. Considering nominal GDP, United States of America is the richest country in the world. Its net nominal GDP is $22.6 trillion. Next, China. China has net GDP of $16.6 trillion. And on the third, there is Japan. Japan has net GDP, nominal GDP of $6.3 trillion. You can see that United States and China add up to $40 trillion as nominal GDP, annual nominal GDP. So on fourth, there is Germany by $4.3 trillion. And then on the fifth, there is UK, United Kingdom, by $3.1 trillion. And on the sixth number, there is India by $3 trillion. That is not purchasing power parity, but the nominal GDP. If we consider India as purchasing power parity, it is above economically than sixth number. We will see it on the chart of GDP as PPP. So we will see it on the next chart. Anyway, on the seventh number, there is France by $2.9 trillion. On 8th, there is Brazil by $2.6 trillion. On 9th, there is $2.5 trillion. There is Italy by $2.5 trillion. And on the 10th number, there is Russia by $2.2 trillion. So that is the list of top 10 countries by nominal GDP, by nominal annual GDP. And now we will gonna see the top 10 countries by purchasing power parity GDP. That is a little bit realistic than nominal if we consider purchasing power as a great factor. So China is on the top, the world's biggest economy, considering purchasing power parity annual GDP by 26.6 trillion US dollars. And United States is on the second number. When we saw nominal GDP, then United States was on the top, but considering triple P GDP, China is the world biggest economy by 26.6 trillion US dollar, and United States is on the second number by 22.6 trillion dollar. You can notice one thing, that the purchasing power parity GDP of United States is the same as nominal GDP of United States. Why? Because United States is an international standard. Currency of United States is an international standard for comparing purchasing power parity GDP and also the nominal GDP. So that is the reason that United States has the same nominal GDP and purchasing power parity GDP. Anyway, on the third number by triple P GDP is India. It is of $10.2 trillion. Considering nominal GDP, India is on, we have seen that India is on sixth number by $3 trillion nominal GDP, but considering triple P GDP, India is on third number by $10.2 trillion. In other words, India is the third largest economy of the world. And the big factor of this economy is the population of India, which is above billion people. So that is the reason that India is so much rich economically, considering purchasing power parity. On the fourth number, there is Japan by $5.5 trillion. And then there is Germany by $4.7 trillion. Then on sixth number, there is Russia by $4.3 trillion. And then on seventh, there is Indonesia by $3.5 trillion. Then Brazil on eighth number by $3.3 trillion. And then United Kingdom by $3.2 trillion. And then on 10th number, there is France by $3.2 trillion. So that is a chart of top 10 countries considering purchasing power parity GDP. In this picture, you can see a comparison of nominal GDP and purchasing power parity GDP in a way that how every country in the world, how much every country of the world contributes in world GDP. So this is of 2019 databased picture. So I'm sorry, this is 2018 year databased picture. So you can see that United States, China, these are bigger in this picture than all the rest of countries. And you can easily see that only these two countries, I mean US and China, add up to about 40 to 45% of world economy. And if you add Japan in them, then You can say that United States plus China plus Japan makes half of the net world GDP. Amazing. And here in this picture, interestingly, my country, Pakistan, contributes a very little, a very tiny factor, a very tiny figure of the whole net world GDP. That is, if I try to see, then Pakistan contributes about 0.8% of the whole net GDP, considering GDP as purchasing power parity. That is less than 1%. So my country, Pakistan, contributes less than 1% in the world economy, realistically. Anyway, so now considering different sectors, there are three economic sectors: agriculture, industry, and services. Historically, agriculture was the biggest sector in the world in past, before industrial revolution. I mean, before 3 centuries ago. So, but now agriculture contributes a very little part in the whole economic world. Why? Because humanity and human civilization and human economy has evolved so much that we don't need that every human of the world becomes a farmer and go to the field and contribute a direct part in agriculture. No, our technology and our world is progressed so much that now agriculture only makes 4% of the whole world GDP. About 4%, 3 to 4%. And industry contributes just 32%, and services sector contributes about 64% of the world GDP. That is the biggest sector. What does it mean? Is that most of the world economy, most of the world value and wealth is generated from services sector, and less from services sector is industry sector, that is 32%, and then agriculture, which is a tiny figure as compared to services and industry. But you can say that the whole world system is based on agriculture. If the world has not been progressed in agriculture so much, and world has not been sufficient, has not become sufficient in agriculture sector, then we cannot go to industry. And if we were not so much sufficient in industry sector, then we cannot go to services sector. So if you see in that sense, then the world basically based upon agriculture, then after agriculture it is based upon industry, and after industry it is based upon services sector. Anyway, and if you want to see how much a country is progressed, You can see it by this comparison, whether its economy is based upon agriculture, whether its economy is based upon industry, or whether its economy is based upon services. For example, my country is a third world country. My country is Pakistan, which is a third world country, and most of the economy of Pakistan is based upon agriculture. You can see in this world map that Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the countries of Middle Africa, these are third world countries, and their economy is based upon agriculture. India and Bangladesh is also in this list. But economy of China or United States or Russia or Saudi Arabia or European countries, these are not based upon agriculture as compared to these third world countries. So, and if you see industrially, then there are countries like China, like Iraq, like Mexico, and India, Australia. In South Africa, there are countries based upon industry, and also European countries are based upon industry. So yeah, industry shares a big figure in world GDP. And if we see the world map by service sector, then you can see that United States and Western European countries and Japan and South Africa and Brazil, their economy is mostly based upon services sector, and these are first world countries, rich countries in world GDP. So interesting. In this picture, you can see the progress of United States, that 80% of its economy is based upon services sector, 19% is based upon industry, and less than 1% is based upon agriculture. On the other hand, China has a half figure of services sector and industry sector. Like China has 48% of economy based upon services sector, and then 43% on industry sector, and just 9% of its economy is based upon agriculture. And then you can see a few European countries, and then Brazil and Italy. So most of their economy is based upon services sector. And I haven't read it, but you can guess that in the future more and more of the world economy will be based upon services sector, as we are progressed in technology, in technology and in industry. So in the future, our world will have most of its part in services sector. So this was part 1 of series World Economy, and part 2 is right next to it.